The story begins with David Lawson, a powerful black CEO of a leading tech empire, who is traveling with his teenage son Malik for a much-needed vacation. David is known worldwide as a symbol of success, a man who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most influential voices in technology and business. Malik, on the other hand, is a quiet, bright boy who is still navigating the challenges of being the child of a public figure. On this day, their lives change forever. The flight starts normally. Passengers settle into their seats, the crew prepares for takeoff, and David, exhausted from back-to-back meetings, relaxes into his chair while Malik flips through his tablet. But soon, tension brews when a flight attendant, irritated by Malik asking for a simple second snack, accuses him of being entitled and disruptive. David, at first, doesn't think much of it. He has dealt with microaggressions before, but Malik looks shaken, confused by the hostility. Moments later, when Malik quietly insists he did nothing wrong, the flight attendant suddenly slaps him across the face. The cabin goes silent. Gasps fill the air. Some passengers instinctively pull out their phones to record, while others look away, unwilling to get involved. David leaps to his feet in disbelief, his voice echoing through the cabin as he demands to know how anyone could dare touch his son. The flight attendant insists Malik deserved it, and the captain remains shockingly indifferent, urging David to sit down and cooperate. For David, this is no longer about one slap. It is about dignity, respect, and the centuries of injustice behind a single act of violence. He makes a powerful decision in that moment. If the airline will not take responsibility, he will force them to. Pulling every string within his network, he demands the flight be grounded, and within minutes, the aircraft is halted on the runway. Confused passengers begin to realize this is no ordinary traveler making demands, this is a man with influence far beyond their understanding. News spreads quickly as clips of Malik being slapped circulate online. Hashtags begin trending, #Justice for Malik, #SkyRacism, #Flying while black. Outrage grows by the hour, and the airline scrambles to contain the public relations disaster. Reporters wait outside the terminal, passengers give live interviews, and David's face floods every news broadcast. But behind the media storm, Malik struggles silently. For him, it wasn't just the slap, it was the humiliation, the disbelief that people would assume he was at fault simply because of who he was. David watches his son retreat inward, and he vows privately that no other black child, no other family, will ever endure what they did that day. The season closes with David standing in front of a crowd of reporters, cameras flashing in every direction. He does not just demand justice for Malik, he declares that he will change the aviation industry forever. His words hang heavy in the air, a promise of war against an entire system. The world listens, waiting to see if this CEO can truly turn a moment of pain into a movement that will alter history. The airline's official apology is released within days, but it feels empty, rehearsed, and dripping with corporate spin. They describe the incident as a misunderstanding, refusing to acknowledge the slap or the deeper issue of racial profiling. The public isn't convinced, and neither is David Lawson. He knows a hollow statement cannot erase the humiliation his son suffered, nor the years of systemic bias others have endured silently. David decides to fight back through the courts. He hires a team of powerful lawyers, not just to sue for damages, but to expose the rot within the airline industry. Malik's name is dragged into headlines every day. Tabloids twist the story, framing him as a spoiled child who overreacted. Malik, already shaken, begins to withdraw from his friends, from school, and even from his father. He struggles to live in the shadow of a viral moment he never asked for, haunted by the slap replayed over and over on news outlets and social media. Activists rally outside airports with signs demanding change. Some praise David as a hero, while others criticize him for using his wealth and power to escalate the issue. Politicians begin weighing in, some supporting his fight, others siding with the airline lobby that pours money into campaigns. David's company stock begins to suffer, and investors question whether he is risking too much of his empire for a personal vendetta. But to David, this is not a distraction, it is a calling. Inside the airline, fear brews. Whistleblowers anonymously leak internal emails and training documents that reveal a disturbing pattern of bias in hiring practices and passenger treatment. Stories from former employees emerge, black staff being passed over for promotions, passengers of color being unfairly targeted during flights, complaints being silenced to protect the airline's image. What once seemed like an isolated incident now looks like the tip of an iceberg. As lawsuits pile up, the airline doubles down. Their lawyers attempt to discredit David by digging into his past, searching for scandals to weaken his credibility. They paint Malik as unruly and entitled in court filings, hoping to sway public opinion. But then, a video leaks, a full recording from a passenger's phone showing every second of the slap, followed by Malik's calm insistence that he had done nothing wrong. The internet erupts again, this time angrier than before. Malik watches the video too, tears streaming down his face. For the first time since the incident, he feels validated, knowing the world can finally see what he endured. Still, the scars remain. He confides in his father late one night, admitting he feels like his entire identity has been reduced to the boy on the plane. David listens quietly, realizing the fight ahead must not only be about exposing the truth, but also about giving his son his life back. The pressure mounts as David stands at a crossroads. He can continue battling the airline in endless lawsuits, or he can take an entirely different path, one that reshapes the very skies themselves. At a press conference that shocks the industry, David announces his boldest move yet. He will create his own airline, built on fairness, equity, and respect. He promises technology-driven transparency, crew accountability, and a travel experience where no passenger will ever fear discrimination again. The announcement sends shockwaves through the aviation world. Supporters cheer the vision, skeptics call it impossible, and competitors scramble to prepare for a war that could upend the industry. The season closes with Malik watching his father on television, standing tall as he declares, "If they will not change, then I will build something new." Malik's eyes widen, a flicker of hope returning as he realizes his father's fight is not just for him, it's for everyone. David Lawson's declaration to launch his own airline shakes the foundations of the aviation industry. Competitors laugh at first, dismissing the idea as impossible. After all, starting an airline requires billions, connections with governments, and compliance with regulations stacked deliberately against newcomers. But they quickly realize David is serious. Investors who believe in his vision rally behind him, inspired by his promise of transparency, fairness, and innovation. The name of his project spreads everywhere, SkyUnity. Behind the scenes, powerful figures begin plotting against him. Airline lobbyists push for stricter regulations, attempting to stall his permits. Politicians who are in the pockets of legacy airlines smear him publicly, framing him as an arrogant billionaire overreaching into an industry he knows nothing about. Anonymous threats begin to arrive at his office, subtle warnings to back down. But David refuses. He knows this fight is bigger than him, and each attempt to silence him only strengthens his resolve. Meanwhile, Malik is slowly finding his voice. Still recovering from the trauma, he's encouraged by the support pouring in from young people across the world who saw themselves in his story. Students write letters to him, parents bring their children to rallies with signs saying "For Malik." At first reluctant, he begins to speak at small gatherings, telling his truth, describing the humiliation and fear he felt on that flight. His words resonate deeply, and soon, he becomes an unintentional youth leader in the movement for equality in the skies. But shadows from the past threaten to derail everything. The flight attendant who slapped Malik, after disappearing for months, resurfaces with a lawyer of her own. In a televised interview, she claims she was the victim, alleging Malik was aggressive, that she feared for her safety, and that David is exploiting the situation for profit. The interview stirs controversy, and though many dismiss her words as desperate lies, others latch onto her story, muddying public opinion. Malik, devastated, feels like the wound is being ripped open again. David comforts him, reminding him that truth always outlives falsehood. As construction of SkyUnity progresses, sabotage attempts intensify. Key suppliers suddenly back out under pressure from rival airlines. False safety reports appear in the press, questioning the reliability of David's proposed planes. Even some of his closest allies begin to waver. But then, something extraordinary happens. Airline employees who have faced racism, sexism, and abuse begin coming forward, offering to join SkyUnity. Pilots, flight attendants, and engineers who were silenced for years see in David's vision a chance for change. They risk their careers to stand with him. The movement explodes worldwide. Passengers begin demanding reforms from existing airlines, citing SkyUnity as the future they want to see. Demonstrations break out in airports, not against delays or cancellations, but against discrimination and injustice. The old industry giants realize they are no longer just fighting David, they are fighting a wave of change that cannot be stopped. The season builds toward a dramatic climax, the launch of SkyUnity's very first flight. Reporters swarm the runway, protesters and supporters gather outside, and the world watches to see if David can deliver on his promise. As the gleaming new jet prepares for takeoff, Malik steps onto the aircraft beside his father, nervous but proud. The engines roar to life, a symbol of a new era taking flight. Just as the plane lifts off the ground, a mysterious power outage hits the airport, an act of sabotage meant to shake faith in David's dream. The aircraft, however, rises safely into the sky, proving its advanced technology can withstand even sabotage. The cameras capture the moment, SkyUnity's first successful flight. The people cheer, competitors seethe, and David looks out the window at a world below that is about to change forever. Malik sits beside him, no longer just a victim of injustice, but a symbol of hope for the next generation. SkyUnity's successful launch sends ripples through the world. What began as a father's fight for his son now blossoms into a global revolution in aviation. Passengers flood social media with praise for the new airline. The seats are comfortable, the service is respectful, and every flyer, regardless of race, class, or background, is treated with dignity. Stories pour in of passengers breaking down in tears when realizing they weren't profiled, questioned, or harassed. The world begins to believe this is more than just a business, it is a movement. David Lawson becomes a visionary not only in technology but in human rights. His model of transparency is revolutionary. SkyUnity flights are equipped with AI-driven monitoring systems that track crew interactions with passengers, ensuring accountability at every level. Passengers have access to real-time feedback systems, and staff are trained with empathy-based modules designed to eliminate bias. Hiring practices change, opening doors for those who were once excluded. Slowly, governments take notice, and other airlines are forced to adopt SkyUnity's policies to avoid public backlash. Malik, now older and more confident, steps into a new role. He becomes the face of SkyUnity's youth initiative, traveling the world to speak about justice, dignity, and the importance of using trauma as fuel for change. No longer the silent boy defined by a slap, he transforms into a leader, turning pain into purpose. His speeches inspire a generation of travelers, activists, and innovators who see him not as a victim but as a survivor who demanded the skies be safe for everyone. But the journey is not without resistance. The old airline that once humiliated Malik fights desperately to stay afloat. They launch smear campaigns, try to undermine SkyUnity with legal battles, and even beg governments for bailouts. Their collapse becomes inevitable as more whistleblowers expose corruption, cover-ups, and systemic abuse. When the company finally files for bankruptcy, the public cheers, declaring it the downfall of an era where discrimination was tolerated in the skies. Meanwhile, Malik wrestles with one final challenge, his own lingering scars. Though he is celebrated worldwide, he admits privately to his father that the slap still lives in his memory, a moment he can never erase. David tells him gently that true healing does not come from forgetting, but from rewriting the story. Together, they board a SkyUnity flight surrounded by passengers of every background, each greeted with warmth and respect. Malik looks around and realizes this was the rewrite all along, the same setting where his trauma began, now transformed into a place of safety and equality. The closing moments unfold in cinematic triumph. As the plane soars above the clouds, David and Malik sit side by side, gazing out the window. David rests his hand on his son's shoulder, knowing the battle was worth every sacrifice. Malik smiles for the first time without hesitation, finally seeing the skies not as a reminder of pain, but as a symbol of hope. The camera pans out to reveal the SkyUnity jet cutting through the blue horizon, carrying with it not just passengers, but a legacy that changed aviation forever.